Hello, this is Allison, and welcome to my client interaction PowerPoint presentation. For this interaction, it has taken place in an elementary/third grade setting, and it was the first time meeting in the school year for me and officially with the client. I got introduced as a student that was still learning since he had to get a signed take-home waiver that I could meet with him individually. And it was during his snack time when he was describing his good news of the summer. For the sessions in this particular setting, they start off with good news, which good news is anything that happened over the last week from seeing them, or specifically since this was the first meeting of the year of the summer. This child had had a previous history of being aware of his really negative thoughts, and it gave him tremendous anxiety. These negative thoughts would be certain swear words that he knows he shouldn't be thinking about, and stuff like that impacted him negatively. But during this meeting, he did warm up pretty well and was excited to speak about his interests the entire time. He was in a great mood the entire 30-minute session, especially since it was during his stack time. And from being extremely participative, this made it easier to start forming a connection with the client. He only spoke of his summer, and he did not feel comfortable enough to tell me what's been going on, which was expected, though he is comfortable with my supervisor, so maybe he was hoping to have that one-on-one conversation with her instead. So for question number 1, how this client related to the first contact together. So our purpose for the client interaction was to go through his quote unquote good news and to go through his emotion zones, which the emotion zones are different colors that go with each emotion. And it's a fun little activity for them to place what they are feeling in that moment. And this kid had its own purpose, which was to eat his snack and talk about his summer. The official client goals was, even though when he went past the snack time, I had to reiterate the goals for the day, which was the good news and emotion zones and what we were supposed to be doing. Now, even though he went past into his snack time and kept taking out more snacks, a couple minutes before time was up, the negotiating next step is I went over the expectation for the upcoming week and that it was okay that we didn't do what we were supposed to do, but we would focus on it to do it within the next week. For the second question, using the course readings, when starting this session with the client, I had the automatic role of being respectful, clear, and purposeful, authoritative to him. And during it, I made sure to continue having that role, even when he was going off the rails for our objectives of the session. Using the Liberation Health model, I let the client showcase how he was in the driver's seat. This is shown as he continued speaking his good news and going past the objective and did not make the motion to do what he was supposed to on the board. So while he was technically completing the task, being in that driver's seat allowed him to take his own route for his good news and his own role in the session. For the next part of question 2, it is the Liberation Health model. My supervisor had spent some time giving me an explanation of why he was being seen by her in the school previously before our session, which gave me certain insights on what to expect and what could happen of how he could be interacting and behaving. But using the Liberation Health model, it's shown how this information could be counted as a basis for the process, which also helped give me further awareness for his behaviors and emotions. And because of those previous insights that my supervisor had provided me, it helped me connect more to the client as there weren't as many barriers as before. For the last slide of question 2, the empathy and skills. Using empathy skills, I made sure to not just nod, listen, and agree, but I also made sure to continue the conversation with this client. I kept talking back about his interest to showcase how I was interested in listening and wanting to actually know about them and wasn't just yesing him to death. And this action did create the connection for us in the session to have further on in the future. After this session, though, I did have to make sure and be honest with my supervisor about how I performed, as it was my first client interaction for the field placement and of the year. And I wanted to use the ability of feedback and reflection that helps students improve their skills, and especially since it helps learners develop an understanding of their strengths and areas in development and all that fun stuff. But my supervisor was clear that I did do well to establish the connection and had no criticisms yet, as it was only the first session. For question 3, like all good things, there's always going to be a challenge. And specifically for this session, there was 2 ethical dilemmas that were kind of found. One was ethical distress, which is feeling negative emotions derived from knowing what would be the right course of action and but being unable to carry it out due to other constraints. And there was also ethical creativity. By making extra effort to work out would be right in the new circumstances and being flexible and imaginative in carrying it out. These were experienced when the client did not follow my standard routine instructions and he continued on his own path of eating more snacks and speaking his good news instead of getting up to write it on the board. And definitely in the future, I am going to learn to not have those expectations that he is going to follow that routine, as especially it was the first session and things don't always go as planned. And I definitely, learning with this session, understood how this kid follows his own path. He does what's directed, but he's going to take his own path to complete the objective. For the last and final question, number 4, if there was any concerns with this client, there are not really any concerns yet, as it is the beginning of the year and it was our very first session together. The previous school year, this client was very emotional and had certain behaviors, but they have not yet appeared this year, as he's been very pleasant and calm. If I was having to place any type of concern, it would be just worried about a possible behavioral regression into that emotional state. But like I said, we've only met once, and I do not want to quote unquote jinx this behavior because it's so good so far, you know? Alrighty, that is it for this presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and here are my references. I hope you have a great night.